Casey, it had to be like Nirvana for you. Nirvana. Or Utopia. When you heard the words of Duke Tobin that we just played and heard a moment ago about T. Higgins, that go find your own wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. I mean, not that I had any doubts that we weren't going to try to keep T, but I think we know where the priorities lie after these combine interviews with Duke and with Zach. And it's clear to me, number one priority, Joe Burrow. Second priority, keeping the trio of receivers with us. I'm cool with that. I'm all in on that. Yeah, they said a lot of interesting bits. They had a lot of things that we could digest and break down. One of them being, I think the biggest one, being Joe Mixon's future, where they were all about making T. Higgins, Joe Burrow priorities. They're here to stay. Those are guys that we want to keep. And the same was not said about Joe Mixon. And the thing is, they talk about how they're going to maximize the cap. They said that they liked the running back room, but they kind of used past tense, like Joe Mixon was a great guy for us. Like they like it's
interesting.
Yeah, I got the same impression.
Yeah, so it's like maybe they're gonna go to him and say, "Listen, you got to take a pay cut, or we're cutting you." I think that could. I think now, I thought that was like a 25% chance of happening. I think now it's like a 50, 60% chance of happening.
I bet it's higher than that.
Yeah, I wouldn't know for certain. The other thing, too, is the free agents. They've pretty much already said that depending on what market value for Pratt, for Bell, for Bates, depending on what that shakes out to be, is going to determine where they play next year. So there's no guarantees with those guys either. I just don't
see. And you make a great point, and I said it in the monologue. They offered Jesse Bates a long-term deal for $17 million a year. They had to franchise tag it. There was some animosity between the two. And as many of you know, we'll get to this part in a minute, Jesse Bates and T. Higgins both have the same agent. Now, whether that plays into this whole thing or not in terms of Higgins and his long-term future with the Bengals remains to be seen. You'd like to think that you can separate, if you're an agent, this situation from that situation. They're all different. I think the Bengals would be making a terrible mistake signing Jesse Bates to a long-term contract. He was thinking that the market, that he would be sort of the guy that set the standard of the free agent market for safeties. And that's why he turned down a long-term deal. But now at this point, you got Dax Hill back there you've drafted. A much cheaper option is to bring back Von Bell, great leader. Bates has been a good player here, but not a $17 million a year player, especially when you've got all these other guys coming up. I want to get back to the Higgins thing, though, for a minute. And here's the thing. To put everybody's mind at rest, because there's a lot of people that are floating things out there that are just inaccurate. This coming season will be the final year of T. Higgins' rookie contract. They don't have to do anything with T. Higgins. He can just play this year on the final year of his rookie deal. You could franchise tag him each of the next 2 years after this year. It'd make no sense to franchise tag him now. None. Because you give him an enormous raise when you don't have to do it. But to come out and blatantly say, for me, we're not trading T. Higgins. Now, maybe behind closed doors, they're leaving their options open. But if somebody comes to you and says, hey, we're going to give you X, Y, and Z, which would just blow the doors off of anything you thought you could get. For me, outside of Burrow and maybe Chase, there's not a guy on this team that I say is totally off limits. Burrow might be the only one, because you just don't know what some teams are willing to offer you in return if indeed they want to try and make a trade for T. Higgins. You can't just unequivocally say, no, he's off the board. Right?
Yeah. Well, I kind of understand what you're saying, Tom. The flip side of that is, why would they trade a guy that this other team values so highly that they're willing to trade XYZ? You know what I mean? I think that's where they're at. Is the quote that he says is, we're not in the business of making other teams better. It's because he knows that the value of a certain player is that high. Or like, why would we even, you know, it's the thought of it is like, why would we even trade someone that good away for average players or for unknown talent?
No. I'm not talking about average or unknown talent. I'm saying somebody walks in the door and just blows your mind. Let's just pick the Lions, because that was one of the teams that everybody was talking about, right? Okay. The Bengals are clearly looking for a guy who, when they get in the red zone, and Zach Taylor talks about this all the time, when they get in the red zone, you've got to have a guy that can take the football in the run game and get you into the end zone. The Williams kid last year rushes for over 1,000 yards, and he scores 17 touchdowns, okay, as a running back.
Yeah.
If they walked in the door and they said to you, okay, we're going to give you Williams, we're going to give you a number 1 draft pick wherever they're picking this year, and we're going to give you a number 1 draft pick for next year wherever they're picking next year. Are you not going to at least listen to that deal?
I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't, because I would listen to that deal. But like I said, that's not Duke Tobin's mindset. His mindset is, wow, you're going to give me all that? Man, T. Higgins is really valuable then. I'm not going to trade him away and make your team better. Why would I do that if he's that valuable? So I see both sides.
Yeah.
But in my mind, that is one area where the Bengals' philosophy to me is not all the way sound, I guess. It's not a perfect thing, but it is what they do. And they've stuck to their guns on that.
And done a good job at it.
They've done a relatively good job at it. I mean, the times that they have traded seems like they've gotten away with it, like the B.J. Hill trade. Or you can even go back to like Ocho
that was a hell of a deal, the B.J. Hill trade.
Right. That was huge. I can't really think of the other trades off the top of my head, but the two that stick out to me are the one to get B.J. Hill. That was big. They traded away Ocho Cinco for not a whole lot, but I think they won that trade. He didn't do much in New England. We traded away Carlos Dunlap. He didn't really produce where he went to. Took him a couple different teams before he get his footing back again. There's a lot of different examples like that where the Bengals have managed to be the victors of their trades. I think the one that comes to mind that I think the trades that they would do are picks for players or picks back to acquire more picks. That's something that I think they would consider, but they will never trade a player for unknown talent or
no, nor should they. Not when you're talking about a guy. If we're talking specifically here about Higgins, the only way you would even consider making a deal is if it's something that you just say to yourself, we cannot turn this down.
Right. Yeah, and I have a clip here if you want to kind of hear this like minute and a half breakdown of where the mindset for Duke Tobin is. I'm going to just get it ready for you and play it real quick.
Let's pull it up. I like this guy, Duke Tobin. This is a man's man.
You're in a good place. You got a good football team, a great quarterback, and the room to do things.
Yeah, how long that lasts, we'll see. Our quarterback will
this interview's lasting a lot longer with a guy in your shape than the guys we've had to talk with.
But our quarterback is the key, and our job is to facilitate his success in every way that we can, and put the pieces around him. And we're gonna spend to the cap. We're not gonna.
No, I know you will. I think just because we've referenced Joe between the three of us 10 times already, just your impressions of him at this point in his career as he's grown into being the Bengals superstar.
Yeah, he walked in like the Bengals superstar, and not a lot of people, have the confidence to do that and the wherewithal to know how to do it. He came into our situation and he wanted to be in charge without being overbearing. And, he's just got so much confidence in himself in the right way. It's rare that you can have a guy with that level of confidence and no arrogance.
It's called humility. He's got some of that.
He's got no arrogance, but that he knows, and it's just a very comforting thing. I've got a great relationship with him. I lean on him to give me ideas, give me thoughts. What are you seeing, especially on the offensive side of the ball? What makes you more comfortable, this or this? What makes those are things that are important.
Yeah.
As he goes, we go.
Well, there's no doubt about that. And I mean, it all starts with Burrow's contract. They're not going to be able to do anything. Well, that's not true. They're going to have a general idea, and they already do. I'm sure they're talking to his agent about what this thing basically looks like. Now, how you carve it up and how you do it and so on and so forth, will vary, certainly. But they have the framework of what that contract's going to look like, and then what they're going to be able to do or not able to do once the Burrow contract gets done. Some people think this thing's not going to get done until training camp, but I don't think anybody really knows for sure outside of Mike Brown and Katie Blackburn and Troy Blackburn and obviously Zach Taylor and Duke Tobin as to where all that stands right now.